Guys, I'm here. I'm live. I know I am about very late, even on my standards. So I do apologize. Had some technical difficulties here trying to get everything working with my mic and my new sound system here. So I'm just gonna give you guys a minute or two to jump on board. Again, my apologies. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and put replay into the comment section. I always like to know who's watching me for the replay, and if you have any questions about what we talked about tonight, go ahead and put those in. I do like to go back and answer any questions that may have come up. So I see a few of you guys jumping on board. Hey guys, can you just give me a quick thumbs up? You can hear me okay with this new mic I'm using. I know I was having a little harder time this evening getting everything put together with the different setups that I have going on right now, but I think I've got it. So, all right, I see some more of you jumping on board. Stephen, you can hear me. Thank you so much for letting me know. All right, guys, good. And we got Scott on board. You can hear me too. At least I got it working. So we've got, hey, Emily from Central PA. You can hear me good. And Emily, I've got your questions. They are first on tap for this evening. I promised you that I would answer your questions first because I did not get a chance to get to them last week. So we're going to answer your questions first this evening. Hey, Tom. Yes, Jim, I know. I'm trying out new equipment because I am going to the Amputee Coalition Conference, and I will be a guest of College Park, and I'll be broadcasting from their booth. So I've been trying out some new audio equipment, some new things that'll help me be able to broadcast in a really noisy conference hall and just have a little more freedom with that. So thank you for being patient. That's why I'm late this evening. Hey, we've got, yes, Mark, I'm here. I know. It's all this fun new hoopy scoopy equipment, as my tech team calls it. We got Tom on board. Thanks for coming, Tom. And let's see, we got Brian. There we go, Stephen from Jacksonville at the Cosi party. We got Dick Devers from West Virginia with his Miller Lite. We've got Tanya coming in from AZ and Arizona. Boy, you guys are getting some serious heat out there. And then we've got Kelly. I think I saw Kelly on board as well. Kelly, thank you for coming back. I know you were new to the talk show last week. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. We got a lot to talk about this evening. I'm doing my little, I like to call it Cosi Talk summer series on the porch. It's just been, it's I'm not going to lie. It's hot and sticky here right now in Tampa, Florida, but it's just nice being out. I love hearing the crickets. So that's just kind of my thing during summertime. All right, guys, we'll just go ahead and officially get started. For those of you watching the show for the first time, welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso. I'm a physical therapist amputee specialist here in hot, sticky, mosquito-laden Florida. I've been a physical therapist now for a little over 20 years, and my passion is working with the amputee and limb loss community. Yes, Mark, the camera is different. I'm playing around with things. Like I said, I'm going to be at the Amputee Coalition Conference in August. And I know some of you have already reached out to tell me that you're going to be there. And I'm so excited, guys. You know, it's one thing when I'm talking to the screen on Wednesday nights, but it's another thing to get to meet some of you in person and be able to shake your hand. So those of you who are planning on coming to the AC conference in Orlando in August, you know, please spare 5 minutes of your time and come say hello to me at the College Park booth. Or if you can, come see my presentation. I'd love to meet you in person. Let's see. Oh, Kelly, I love to hear that. Good. Kelly, I am so glad to hear it, guys. You know, Kelly says, last Wednesday, you restored my faith in the PT process, and my second PT session went surprisingly well. And again, guys, for those of you who are receiving physical therapy services, you know, hopefully you're fortunate to have someone who's an amputee specialist. But those of you who are not, you know, part of the show is to kind of help you help your therapist. Most therapists, we have a good heart. We want to help our patients, but sometimes we may not have had the necessary experience for certain specialty patient populations. It's one of the reasons I created my Strong Body program. So if that's something, if you're in that kind of a situation where you have a physical therapist that perhaps does not have as much amputee experience, take a look at my Strong Body program. It's a series of over 150 exercise videos and 2 books that go along with it. As physical therapists, we use resources like this for our patients to get, you know, help with our plan of care. And that might be something you can offer out. All right, let's see. Ooh, we got a lot of. Emily says, prosthesis appointment on Friday. Dismissed from PT today until I get my prosthesis. So I'll be doing a home program and doing your Strong Body program. Very happy to hear this. All right. Thank you, Jim. So we got Theo coming in, Theo Rue from Albuquerque, New York. We got Francis going to the conference. Oh, yes, a lead advocate for Florida. I am so glad I will see you there, Francis. Wonderful. All right, guys, hang on a second. Tanya, yes. Have I heard of TMR nerve surgery? Yes, ma'am, I have. In fact, last year I had TMR nerve on my show sponsoring the show last year. And it was a wonderful, wonderful series of videos that we did with the surgeon who pioneered that surgery. So you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth, all the good information. Tanya, if you go to my YouTube channel, and I'm going to go ahead and just plug it in right here for you now. YouTube.Cosi Talks. Cosi Talks. Okay. So there's my YouTube channel, guys. If you go there, for me, I think it's a little easier to find all of my videos there compared to Facebook. Facebook kind of switches things around sometimes, but there are lots of videos that I've done on TMR nerve. Tanya, what I would recommend is that you go to the section that's called the 2-minute chats. There's a lot of great 2-minute videos, and underneath the 2-minute chat for TMR nerve, I've linked all the rest of the longer videos with all the explanations and the talks with the surgeons. Oh, you won't be able to go hard, but Harsh, I might be seeing you in November, and that's all I'm going to say for now, Harsh. Hey, there's Stephen from Alabama. Roll Tide. All right, so let's get with, I promised Emily, and I am going to keep my promise, to answer her questions from last week. So Emily says, when I army crawl, my residual limb tends to slide out from underneath me, kind of ending up in a split. Suggestions: not having a foot makes it harder for stabilization when crawling. Yes, Emily, and in your case, you've shared with us in the past that you have a spina bifida, which means you have, obviously weakness, residual weakness stemming from that. So if I had to guess, if your foot was kind of slipping out like that when you were doing an army crawl, it might be because of the hip flexor weakness. Now, if that's coming from the spina bifida, maybe that's just residual weakness from surgery. I don't know. The other part of it is also your core. When you're in an army crawl position, all fours and quadruped position, your core is trying to hold everything nice and tight together, okay? Including your rectus abdominis and the external obliques and the transverse abdominis and the quadratus lumborum. That's the one way in the back, right? So all of this is trying to hold everything together. So it could be weakness due to one of those things right there. Army crawl, yeah. So, Mark, some people will call it an army crawl. Some people will call it like crawling in quadruped, just like the way a baby would crawl, like in quadruped position. Some people define army crawl as just crawling on the arms and elbows. So it just depends on, I guess, on who you're talking to. I'm an army brat, so you're going to get a different, possibly, definition from me. All right, guys, let's go on to Emily's next question. Ooh, here was a good one, and I'm going to try to see if I can get pictures that she sent. Okay, so Emily asks, why is the shrinker that my prosthetist gave me recently, which is technically for an above the knee amputee, longer than my shrinker that's for a below the knee? And Emily's a below the knee. I'm a below the knee, but I need a longer shrinker due to the swelling of my thigh from the lymphedema. I would have thought that a below the knee shrinker would be longer because the leg is longer than it would be for an AK. And that's simply not the case. Shrinkers are basically made for the length of the limb of the person. Someone who is 6'2" is going to have a much longer natural residual limb probably than someone who's much shorter. And whether it's AK or BK, again, it's just determined by the length of the particular residual limb. I do want to share the pictures though, if that's okay, of the two shrinkers that you sent me, Emily, because I think it'd be easier to explain that way. Let me make sure if I can. Sorry guys, I'm trying to find. How I can share. Ooh, here we go. Okay, so here's the picture of the below the knee shrinker that Emily sent. Pretty standard, right? You just pull it on over the residual limb and off you go. Wait, is that going through, guys? Okay, hopefully it'll go through. Okay, now what's interesting is for the above the knee shrinker, and let me see if I can do this properly. Okay. Okay, so here's the above the knee shrinker, and this is different from the below the knee. So the below the knee shrinker that you saw, it was like a sleeve that she just had to pull on. Here you can see this is almost like a tube sock, and you can see like there's a little bit of like an elastic thing right here in the middle, okay? So what the person does is they put on this part on their limb, okay? And then they twist this and roll it up on the limb as well. So it's almost like a double wrap. I hope that makes sense, okay? And it's just a different kind of shrinker. You can use that for below the knee shrinkers as well as above the knee shrinkers. It's like using a tubey grip is what they're doing, okay? So they put this part on the residual limb, and then they take this part, invert it, and pull it over the limb as well. So it's like a double layer there. I hope that made sense. Hope that made sense, guys. Okay, sorry guys. I'm still learning things with this new equipment. Did that go through, guys? Oh, it went silent. Oh, gollies. Okay, so I don't know if you guys saw that. So I don't know if the sound went out at that point. I apologize, guys. I'm still. Did you guys see those shrinkers that I just put up there? Okay. Okay, guys, you did see that. Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry. It like takes a second when you guys put in the comments for me to see the comments. So it's a little bit of a delay there. Okay. So basically it's just it's a choice. Sometimes with if a person has staples still left in their residual limb, someone's trying to sneak out on the residual limb, they might go for the tubey grip because it's a little easier to put on the residual limb without damaging the staples or the sutures, right? And then also you can adjust the compression there also as well. So with the tuba grip, you get double layers. So sometimes with a person who's fresh out of the OR, they'll just put the first layer on. And if the person tolerates that well, then they'll invert that tuba grip and put it up the rest of the way. Okay. So it's just a different kind of shrinker. It's not necessarily AK versus BK in that case, in that particular case. All right, Pam. No, thank you, Pam. It's my fault this evening. I was running late this evening, but I'm glad you're on board. Kelly says, upgraded from standard 2-wheel walker to a rollator. Yay. And 4-prong cane. I feel like I'm buying a car trying to find the best rollator with good reviews and not too big. I'm short and overweight. And yes, those rollators can be a lifesaver for many people, especially when you get back out into the community and you're on your own and trying to navigate everything on your own. It is handy in the sense that you can put stuff on there and help yourself out in that regard. Okay, let's see. Mark says I'm a BK and my shrinker comes up just below my crotch and I'm 5'9". Right. And a lot of these shrinkers, guys, they can be trimmed by your prosthetist or by your physical therapist. Harsh just celebrated, oh my gosh, his 30th anniversary this month. Wow, Harsh. Wow. Okay. So glad you're here hanging out with us. All right, let's see. Scrolling down. So Emily says, I got the BK shrinker at the hangar at my first appointment in March and the AK one 2 weeks ago. And again, Emily, they may have given you that second one because it's a little less expensive. It's like tubey grip, like I said. And in that regard, they can just, it can make it go a little bit longer up your thigh like you need it to. Okay, so Racine is having me jump right into it. Racine is asking, how do you make the back as strong as an above knee amputee? On Cosi Talks on the social media was, do you have, answer the poll. I want you to put it in again. Do you experience back pain? Yes or no? Go ahead and put it in the comment section. And if you do experience back pain, I want to know, did you have it before your amputation or did it start happening after amputation? Lots of great comments. So let's see. Harsh says no. Emily says yes. Ooh, we're getting lots of yeses. I'm not gonna be able to keep up. Kim says yes. Tom says yes. Scott says yes. Jim says yes. Big time yes. Okay. So guys, when I put out the polls, not surprisingly, right, it was an overwhelming majority of folks that said yes. And many people said that they started experiencing their back pain after the amputation. A study I read a while back, and I probably need to update my information on this, said that 80% of amputees 5 years into their amputation will experience back pain. Okay. Some of you even made the distinction of saying, yes, I had back pain prior to surgery, prior to my amputation, but a large part of that was because I was not very mobile and I was limping around on crutches and I already had issues with gait before then. So that was good to note that as well. Let's see. Dick Dever says, afterwards, my prosthetic works well, except for the fact that it causes me back pain. I can put it on in the morning and don't need to change my socks throughout a 16 to 18-hour day. I've never had any pain in my residual limb. However, my physical activity is now severely limited due to back pain, and I cannot do the same level of work as before my amputation level because of it, and looking for help. Marianne says, no more back pain since I quit being a CNA. Yeah, and I agree. That is back-breaking work right there, being a CNA. God bless those people. Mark says, yes, but I have spinal compression. All right. So let's just, I mean, we could do a whole summer series of shows on back pain, guys. I have colleagues of mine that is all they do. They just treat back pain day in, day out. The same way that I only treat amputees, many of my colleagues have gone into the specialty of treating back pain, because it's not just among amputees. It's some ridiculous percentage of the world's population experiences back pain at some point or another in their lives, okay? So let's talk about some of the causes that it can be. You know, as our bodies age, things tend to kind of break down, right? So things like herniated discs, spinal stenosis, right? Arthritis, you know, whether it's degenerative joint disease or osteoarthritis, can settle into the spine, causing the spinal cord to kind of be crunched in just a little bit and start sending off this shooting pain, okay? When it comes to amputation, right, not only are we battling the natural aging process, but we're also facing a very stark asymmetry. Okay. Now, all of our bodies are asymmetrical. There's no such thing as perfect symmetry. Even though Mother Nature wants us to be perfectly symmetrical, if you take us and divide us in half, we're not perfectly symmetrical. We're having little differences here and there. One eye might be a little bit lower than the other. One leg might be just a smidgen longer than the other. Okay. In an amputee, obviously, the leg length discrepancy is much more considerable. Okay. And as my friend Reggie Showers would say, even though we have wonderful technology with prosthetic devices, we are not yet able to recreate divine design, right? So our bodies are constantly fighting this asymmetry after amputation, okay? So you're gonna have uneven weight bearing. You're gonna have gait deviations, meaning your prosthetic leg might not be moving as smoothly through the gait pattern, okay? So when I have an amputee that comes to see me and they say, I'm having back pain, and usually I get this from folks who come to see me after they've been using their prosthesis for a while. I get all sorts in my clinic, and I've seen all sorts. I have some folks, amputees, that come see me and that are able to get to my clinic right after they get their prosthesis, and we can start from the very beginning, which I love because we get to put in some really good habits there. But I do have many, many amputees that come see me sometimes even years after their amputation, because they either never had physical therapy, or they're realizing that even though they had physical therapy in the past, they need to get tuned up. Okay, so when someone comes and tells me my back pain is killing me, I'm zipping up and down everywhere all day, but my back pain at the end of the day is killing me. So I do a head to toe evaluation, but one of the things I really focus on, the gait pattern, the gait pattern. Okay. And I would say I've never done an official study on this one, guys. Don't, you know, this is not a Cosi, this is not an official peer reviewed in a journal study. This is just me doing this for the past 20 something years. I would say that when I start working with a patient who has back pain and I start working on their gait pattern, 70% of their back pain goes away. Okay. Because we're correcting in the gait pattern any gait deviations, any, you know, any anomalies that are throwing it off, and then putting the stress onto the back. Now, is that to say that a person who comes into my clinic is not going to get screened for herniated discs, for spinal stenosis, all of these other issues? Yes. And if I think that there's something like that cooking that we don't know for sure yet, I will refer them back to the doctor, back to a neurologist, to see if we can get an MRI or something just to confirm what is going on back there, right? To make sure we know where it's coming from, okay? But even folks who have herniated disc, and let's face it, guys, if you did a CT scan on everybody over 50 years of age, all of those folks are gonna have some kind of a herniation somewhere, okay? Whether or not it's causing a problem, that's a different story. But getting back to working with amputees, a lot of times it's the gait. And for me, sometimes the more experienced the amputee, right, the more their back pain has to do with their gait pattern. And most of the times my amputees will say, I know it. I know it because I walk with a limp, or I'm lazy when I walk and I don't bend my knee properly with my microprocessor knee. And I know that that's throwing me off. And it's like, yep, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. You know, if you were to kind of walk around, you know, kind of with an exaggerated limp all day, how is that not going to cause you pain? Whether it's going to cause you pain in your hip or in your knee or your low back. Okay, so correcting those gait deviations is something that I try to do as best as I can with my patients. Are we ever going to completely correct every single gait deviation? No. And that's a hard pill I've had to swallow as a clinician over the years. Because when I was first starting out, I would get so frustrated. I'm like, why can't I get rid of this person's gait deviation? I'm supposed to know what I'm in. It's like, well, we're not going to be able to get rid of it 100%, but we can certainly improve upon it. Okay. And then when we look at, okay, what is causing these gait deviations, right? Then we got to dig into that rabbit hole and figure out where that gait deviation is coming from. Okay. Is it because there's something about that prosthesis that just isn't fitting well? Is there something about their strength? Do they have core strength? Okay. Do they have the necessary glute strength? And we talked all about glutes last week, guys. And I showed you a couple of my favorite videos for glute strengthening, right? Do they have the necessary range of motion? That's a big one, especially those of you who have hip flexor tightness. And I think hip flexor tightness might be something we cover next week. Okay. If you have hip flexor tightness, then basically that means your hip is not going to be able to extend back fully. Okay. That's going to throw things off with your back. All right. Here, let me catch up on some of these comments. We've got a lot of comments coming in. I want to make sure I'm getting everything here. Stephen says, sometimes I had a discectomy on my L4, L5, but was back to full workout and did a lot of rehab with a personal trainer to help me strengthen my back muscles. And when my socket worked and I was walking longer, it would start to ache, but found that after redesigned socket, it got a lot better. Okay. Yes. And sometimes, guys, again, this is where the science meets the art. This is where the prosthetist and the physical therapist really need to be talking to one another. That if a person is experiencing back pain, is it coming from the prosthesis as well? Right now, I'm thinking of a case where this lovely lady, she was a former nurse, very experienced amputee. She'd been an above the knee amputee for several years, and she was unable to continue for whatever reason with her usual prosthetist. And this was 5 years before she came to see me. So she had to go see a new prosthetist who made her a new socket. Socket just didn't fit very well. But because she was an experienced amputee, she muscled through it. Okay. She muscled through it. 5 years later, right, she has this debilitating back pain and she comes to see me about it. Okay. So the first thing is I look at her socket and I go, my goodness, Mary, you've been using this socket this way for this many years. She goes, I know, I just didn't think life gets in the way. So first thing I did is I sent her to one of my prosthetists that I knew that she was looking for a new one, and he built her a beautiful new socket. And then I started doing the physical examination on her. We found that she had, in her pelvis, she had an asymmetry where one of her pelvic bones had basically shifted up. Okay, so I sent her to a colleague of mine who was able to manipulate it, get it back in place. We did a back strengthening program, and that kind of worked all together. So we had to put a lot of moving pieces together. And then along the way, yes, working on her gait deviation because her socket had not been comfortable, developed gait deviations on top of everything. It was correcting core strength, correcting bony alignment, skeletal, doing a lot of gait training also. All right. So let's see what else. We got Racine saying, I've been in a wheelchair for 2 years. I'm still trying to learn how to use it. I have an amazing teacher, but it's going slow. Looking for an exercise I can do to make the back and flexors stronger. Okay. So, I like this question from Charlie. Hang on, Charlie. I'm going to answer your question. How do you correct the gait of someone who has an elevated vacuum system with very limited knee bend? Ooh, that's a good question. If I feel, and this is where I sometimes have to really sweet talk some of my prosthetists. No, I'm just kidding. They're great people. If I feel that there's a component of the prosthesis that is interfering with the range of motion of my patient, then yeah, I go straight to the prosthetist and I say, hey, can we problem solve around this? Okay. It's very rare that that happens. Usually it's not because the prosthesis is putting that block like that. But on occasion, yes, there is sometimes where, because of the way the prosthesis is made, the person's not able to bend their knee the way they should be able to bend their knee. And that's something that I definitely advocate for with the prosthetist. And a lot of times the prosthetist, because things change, right? Friday afternoon in a prosthetist is not going to be the same as Tuesday morning in a physical therapy office. Things will change since the person last saw their prosthetist. So what may have fit nicely, a few days prior, perhaps is not working out a week later, especially with my newer amputees, right? So this is where communication is absolutely key. But yes, if you are sensing that this is blocking you from bending your knee, you need to tell your prosthetist this, because you're going to start to develop compensations elsewhere. Okay. You need to be able to bend your knee a certain amount to clear it through. And just bending enough, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Your prosthesis should not be impeding you from being able to do normal anatomical movement like that. Okay. So again, Charlie, if you have the physical therapist that you're working with, have them talk to the prosthetist and have them explain to the prosthetist, look, we need this amount of range of motion. We got to work around this somehow. Okay. And then it's the job of the prosthetist to figure out how you're going to do that. Right. Okay. Because honestly, Charlie, if the prosthesis is blocking that knee flexion, no amount of gait training on my part is going to be able to make it look better. If the prosthesis isn't fitting properly, I cannot do my job as a physical therapist and make a person walk better. I wish I could, but I can't. So, all right. Hey there, Jean. All right. So Emily says, I had knee locks on my KFOs and didn't bend my knee when walking before my amputation. But Emily, in your case, it's much different, okay? By the time we get to a point where we are locking a person's knee and preventing it from bending, poof, I just swallowed a bug. It's because that person either has severe knee weakness and instability, and locking their knee is the only way that that person will be able to walk safely and independently. Okay. So for me, that's a almost a last resort thing. Okay. If at all possible, we try to maintain as normal a gait pattern as we possibly can. But are there cases where we have to restrict movement because there's knee instability, weakness, right? In my older folks, because they simply, and I'm talking about very elderly, like late 80s and early 90s. Sometimes we will give them a prosthesis where the knee is locked for their own safety because their balance simply isn't able to tolerate a knee that bends. Then yes, we will lock the knee. But in the case of Charlie, where he's saying that the elevated vacuum is preventing him from bending his knee, that's not acceptable. That's not supposed to happen, especially if Charlie has normal range of motion and good strength in that knee. I hope that makes sense. Woo, bugs are coming out. All right, here we go. Hey there, Nancy from New York. Charlie, all I can say is if your prosthetist said it didn't, if he or she is not listening to you, I would say try again. And just, you can use words like it's causing me to have a gait deviation and it's causing me discomfort. And if at that point your prosthetist is not willing to try to find a different solution for you, then I think it's time to ask for a second opinion. Okay. I'm pretty blunt about that. This is your leg. This is your life, right? You should be able to walk with comfort. You should be able to walk with a well-fitting socket. And it's the prosthetist's job to help you do that. The same way it's my job to make sure that you are learning how to use that prosthesis correctly and learning how to walk as best as you possibly can. So, yeah. And Charlie, I'm going to go ahead. Oops. Actually, guys, let me go ahead and see. You moved on. Good choice, Charlie. Sounds like it was time for you to do that. Yes, suspension sleeves can be annoying with range of motion. I agree. And it's something that, and then it's again, here in Florida where our humidity factor is insane. It's very uncomfortable for my patients who have to wear a suspension sleeve, especially in the 90, 100-degree weather and humidity that we have. So it's something that constantly communicating with prosthetists and just saying, okay, is there a different solution for this? What can we do? And guys, the prosthetists that I work with around here, really amazing people. Always trying to find a different solution. Okay. Absolutely, Kim. I agree. Ah. So Emily says that was the case. I just in how it will be once I have my of not walking the correct way before amputation. And again, your fault. You know, it's one of those things where you had to play the cards in the hand that you were dealt, right? So you had weakness. So it will be interesting to see, you know, can you maneuver the prosthesis? Will you have some gait deviations? Possibly, right? Possibly, yes. But it'll be interesting to see, you know, as you're working with your therapist, and I know they've been doing a great job of working with you and getting you strong and getting you prepped for this. So I'm excited for you, Emily. Um, Jerry asks, this is not a back issue, but how do you pick out a doctor for a revision? That's a really good question. How do you pick out a surgeon? Oh, well, I won't lie. So, guys, years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had to go through the process of finding a breast cancer surgeon as well as oncologist, and several people for my medical team. And even though I was well versed in the world of amputation therapy, and I had even treated breast cancer patients myself at one point, you know, I didn't know of any doctors. I didn't know of anything. So I started calling around. I knew several women in my area who had already been through breast cancer and through the process. So I started by calling them. And finding out what was the cancer hospital that they went to, which doctors in particular, which surgeons. Okay, and then I did some homework. I did some research on the internet. And I would just say, okay, you know, let me look at this person's reviews. What are the negative reviews saying? What are the positive reviews saying? So for me, I really put a high value on referrals, Jerry, on hearing it from someone who's had this particular surgeon as a patient already. Okay. The next thing I would do is when you feel like you've found one or two surgeons, interview them. Have a consult with them. You're not supposed to, you know, a lot of people think, oh, because the surgeon, I had an appointment with them and they consulted with me, that means I have to go with the surgeon. No, not the case. Not the case. You can interview that consult. It's just as much of you interviewing the surgeon as the surgeon doing a physical on you and examining you. Okay. So a couple of questions I would ask Jerry is, the type of procedure they would be doing. What is the healing time? How many revisions do they do on an average basis? You know, is this a surgeon that does several revisions and several amputations a month so that they are very well versed in how to do it? Ask them, how do they feel about targeted muscle reinnervation? That for me is kind of a big one. A surgeon who is knowledgeable on targeted muscle reinnervation, whether or not they decide to use it in your particular case, but the fact that they know about it and that perhaps they are performing the surgery themselves, that means that's a surgeon who is keeping up to date with the latest surgical advances with amputation. But I would say start asking the people around you. Start asking the people around you who live in your area and who have had revisions or amputations done with surgeons in your area. Okay, let me see, guys, what I want to do. Okay, so let's get back to the back pain for a minute. Okay, so a lot of times people ask me, what can I do? What are the exercises I can do? Back pain, guys, is as unique as a fingerprint. Okay, what's causing one person's back pain is not necessarily going to be what causes the other person's back pain. One person might be having back pain because they have tight hip flexors. One person may be having back pain because they have a weak core. Someone else might be having back pain because their pelvis is not aligned properly and it's causing problems. Someone else might have back pain because they have scoliosis, right? And how we treat this is very, very, very differently. Okay, I won't lie, guys. There are times where if I have a complicated back pain case, I will refer them to one of my back pain specialist colleagues because I know that they'll be able to do that much better a job. But here is one exercise that I feel like everybody can do. And it's one that when I have a sore back at the end of the day, this is an exercise that I do. It's from my program. Guys, bear with me for just a few seconds while I try to switch the screens here. I'm going to mute myself here. Let me make sure I do this right. This exercise is meant to start working your transverse abdominis muscle. Now, this is a muscle that's often neglected when doing core training. It's the deepest abdominal muscle and it runs horizontally across your body. And it acts like a corset. So to me, it's one of the most important muscles when you're trying to build a strong core. And I always like to start in the simple position of laying down. This way you can really focus on contracting that particular muscle. So here I have Robin wearing her prosthesis because, again, the more even your weight is distributed, the better you're going to be able to activate this muscle. If you're having trouble either keeping your prosthesis on because you're losing suction, or if you just feel more comfortable with it off, you can go ahead and put some pillows underneath and just have your limbs at the same angle, approximately same angle. So for this exercise, here's Robin's belly button. You're going to visualize pushing your belly button down and up towards your head. So you're going to use your muscles to push down and then up towards the head. Go ahead. And it's a very slight contraction. It's really not a huge movement that you're going to see. And then relax. If you're having trouble kind of activating this movement, you can have someone, I'm going to slip my fingers underneath your back. There. You can have someone put their fingers directly underneath your back and just kind of give you a little tickle. So I'm tickling the back of her back and I'm going to have her push her belly button into my fingers to kind of squash my fingers. There you go. You can see the movement going down. And then relax the contraction. Okay? Push down with your belly button as if you're squashing the fingers. And right now I'm just giving her a little bit of a tickle in the back of her back. And then relax the contraction. Push down. Hold for a 5. And then relax the contraction. So it's a very subtle contraction, folks. Like, confident in that, then I want you to add something and start counting out loud. This is to make sure that you're not holding your breath. It's time. Contraction and count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then release the contraction. Okay? Another way you can tell if you're activating this muscle properly is to put your fingers on the inside of your hips, just gently. And as you do that contraction, you should feel just a gentle tightening underneath your fingers. It's a tricky to do, but once you can start. Okay, guys, I apologize. It seems like that there was a little bit of a buffering thing, but hopefully you guys got to see most of that exercise. Let me just kind of scroll through. Hey there, Kay, glad you could join in. All right, let's see. Did that go through? Audio is low on media share. Did you guys kind of sort of see that exercise though? Okay, so you guys were able to see it. Yes? Okay, awesome. So guys, like I said, when it comes to back pain differently, so if you're having back pain that's innerly function, this is again where you go need so that they can properly coming from a little bit of relief. This just kind of puts the position. See, it's a very gentle, very subtle exercise. Your back is hot and bothered. You know, this is a great way to kind of relieve that tension on your back. Okay. There are some back injuries that flexion makes, and some back injuries where extension makes it worse. With this particular exercise, again, it just puts that spine into kind of a neutral position to kind of give it some relief. Okay. Now, if you're not necessarily experiencing debilitating back pain, but you know that you have that ache at the end of the day, and you know that your core is not strong, again, this exercise is where you begin. Many times you guys have heard me say that for your brain to learn how to coordinate all the different muscle contractions and muscle groups that are going on while you're moving, You have to teach your brain how to do things one at a time. Okay. And the transverse abdominis muscle, that core set muscle that lies really deep in there, and along with it in the backside, the quadratus lumborum, like my mentor Paul reminded me, right? These are very, very deep muscles, the deepest muscles we have in the core. Okay. And it's very hard to get them to activate. A lot of times our obliques, this abdominis want to take over. Right. So putting yourself in the supine position to do this exercise, okay, can help kind of quiet the noise, right? And it allows the transverse abdominis to start doing its job and to start activating that muscle. And then as you get better at activating that muscle, okay, then you can progress to adding different movements into there to make it a little bit more challenging. And in the book and in the series there that I've created, I do just that. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and put this up here. Okay, so guys, there's the Strong Body Program. It has phases 1, 2, and 3 for core strengthening, as well as for arms, legs, balance, and flexibility. So what you saw there, for those of you who have the program, for those of you who have the book, that's in the core phase 1 exercises, both for my above the knee and my below the knee amputees. All right. Whew, it is getting hot out here. All right, let's see. Hey guys, thank you for being patient with me as I'm learning to use all these different devices here and coordinate everything. All right. Hey, Van Gregory. He says, howdy from Texas, late arrival tonight. No back pain, but I've started wearing ankle weights this week. Do you think that this is a good idea? I'm a bilateral below the knee amputee. I'm actually not a fan of wearing ankle weights. I think it puts a lot of stress on the joints, and I don't necessarily see a purpose for it sometimes, Van Gregory. If you want to give yourself that extra challenge, I would encourage you to wear a weighted vest. If anything, if you want to just give yourself that extra challenge because you're not running, you just want to, the vest, because it's central to your core. Okay. When it's down by your ankles, you're putting that much more stress on your knees and on your hips, and then possibly on your back. Okay. Because our legs were not meant to walk with extra weight like that. If you wanted to add the extra weight, get one of those weighted vests and do it that way instead. Okay. All right. Okay, good. Thank you guys that you were able to. James says, is it kind of the same as a stomach vacuum exercise? I've never heard it referred to that way, James, but I can totally see where somebody might think of it like a stomach vacuum. Some people will confuse it with sucking it in, right? And the thing is, we don't necessarily suck it in, because in sucking it in, we're activating other muscles of the core, okay? And with this particular exercise, we're trying to isolate the transverse abdominis. So it's kind of the sucking in motion where you're kind of sucking in your belly button just a little bit, but it's very, very, very subtle, very subtle. Okay. Let's see. Sean says, I broke my neck and back in the same accident that eventually made me an amputee. So Sean, these exercises, core strengthening exercises for you, I think would be even especially important. Charlie says, I have sciatica from jumping and stretching is the only thing that helps get up every time I sit down or try to get up. So, when you have something like sciatica, and a lot of folks will confuse sciatica with low back pain, okay? Because it does refer the pain up to the low back sometimes, okay? When it comes to sciatica, if it's a true sciatic pain, it's because the piriformis, it's a tiny, tiny little muscle. It's not very wide, actually. The piriformis sits on top of the sciatic nerve, right? So if you have something like glute weakness, right? We talked about that last week. Then things like your piriformis are going to get more stressed out and trying to pick up the slack, right? And that piriformis is going to start to get tight, and it's going to tighten around the sciatic nerve, right? So Charlie, that's why you feel better when you stretch, because that's one of the things that we do to help with that particular kind of pain. If the piriformis is spasming around the sciatic nerve, then stretching out that piriformis is going to hopefully help relax it, right? And not cause it to squeeze off that sciatic nerve and send off that shooting pain. And then along with it, glute strengthening exercises so that the piriformis doesn't start to re-spasm again. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, guys. Hey guys, I would love some quick feedback from you guys. Do you guys kind of like how I've been doing the shows the past couple of weeks where I show you an exercise or two from the exercise program that I have to kind of demonstrate things? Is that something that you guys feel like is helping you? Thumbs up, thumbs down, little feedback. I've been trying to switch things up a little bit. Absolutely, Charlie. Absolutely. So I think next week, maybe what I'm going to try to do is maybe we'll talk about hip flexor tightness. How does that sound for you guys? I know I'm asking you guys a lot of questions and hopefully you're typing in the answers right now because I love getting all this feedback. Yep. Okay. Y'all are liking this? Good. Good. Jesse says, I'll have to watch the replay. Just got home. Thank you for these videos. Hey, Jesse, that's why God invented the replay. Good. Okay. And guys, go back so you can watch that exercise, like fast forward through all of my talking and just get to that exercise video and try that one out. Okay. Wonderful. Hip flexors would be great. Okay. Yay. Okay. Awesome, guys. Yes, and especially for those of you who bought the program, who either had the video program or the books or both, part of when I created that program, I wanted you guys to have support. So obviously I can't treat each one of you independently because that's just not possible. But at the very least, those of you who have the program, if I'm hopefully helping you out in these Wednesday nights to kind of guide you through on how to use it. And guys, those of you who have the program, if you have questions, please feel free to put it in the comments section on, what's the best exercise I should look at in the program for this or that or the other. Yes, Emily says hip flexors need to be worked on. They are getting better though. Oh, my pleasure, guys. My pleasure. All right, guys, I have eaten, I think, about 10 bugs this evening. So I got my extra protein in for the evening. I am going to go ahead and sign off. So guys, if you haven't had the chance, go ahead and look at the Strong Body program, see what you think. Show it to your clinicians. It is available for prosthetists to purchase in the clinics. Some of the physical therapists have also been purchasing it as well. Some of you have been taking it to your physical therapist, and I really do appreciate that, guys. All right, guys. Well, as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. And next week, let's talk hip flexors. And I will see you same bat time, same bat channel. God bless, guys.